You're listening to CherryPickin Entertainment.
Throw me the ball and watch what I do with it.
You are now tuned into the CherryPickin podcast with your host, Andre Cherry.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into the CherryPickin podcast. I appreciate you downloading this episode, and we'll talk about Week 1 college football. If you can believe it, we already have played 1 week of college football. It came, it went, and now we are on to Week 2. Actually, at the time that I'm recording this episode, USC and LSU are playing right now in Las Vegas. The last that I checked, it was tied up at 7-7. Let me check the score right now. I'm like flipping between football and the U.S. Open. Right now the score is 10-7. USC is leading LSU in the second quarter. It's about 2 minutes left in the second quarter. Going to halftime. USC is hanging in there with LSU. Kind of surprised by that. But yeah, so that's week. That will be Week 1 college football. We got a game tomorrow too, I believe, but I just want to recap some of the games from this past weekend. It was exciting. It was a fun weekend for college football. There were a lot of fun games this weekend, and we are now on to Week 2. But before we do that, I do want to talk about a few games that had my interest, a few games that really, are making me think early that there's teams that may be better than I thought. There's teams that are worse than I thought. But with it being Week 1, it's still pretty early. So these are just my initial reactions, but we'll dive right in. So Miami versus Florida. This was a game that I thought in the offseason, Miami had a good shot of looking really good against a Florida team that I think has been underachieving for quite a while. The Miami Hurricanes impressed in its season opener against the Florida Gators down in the Swamp on Saturday. The Canes easily cruised to a 41-17 point victory over the Gators, who have now not seen a win in their last 6 games. Their last victory came all the way back on October 14th, 2023 against South Carolina. The highlight of this game between these two Florida schools has to be how quarterback Cam Ward sliced through the Gators defense en route to passing for 385 yards and 3 touchdowns in the Hurricanes' victory. I talked a bit about Cam Ward in the offseason and how he will be in the running for a Heisman this season if he can stay healthy and continue having performances like he did on Saturday against the Gators. Ward became the first Miami quarterback since 1979 to throw for 300 yards in his first start with the team. Canes head coach Mario Cristobal found a gem this offseason, and he's hoping that Ward will lead his team directly to the ACC championship game. I think there's great optimism to believe that the U is back, but I do want to call out the fact that Florida has been a bad team, and they've been bad the last few seasons under Gators head coach Billy Napier, who will now undoubtedly be fired or released from his duties at some point this season. Maybe he'll make it to the end of the season, but I don't think he survives, if I had to make a guess. Right now, Miami is definitely in the discussion for one of the better teams in the ACC, especially considering how FSU fared in Week 0, and then the blowout loss Clemson suffered against Georgia, as well as Virginia Tech's embarrassing loss against Vanderbilt in Week 1. I will be excited to see how Miami's season continues shaping up this year, because they are a team that people are talking about. Folks are excited about Cam Ward, and I think they've got a high ceiling in the ACC. I think they could do some really dangerous things this year. They're a team to look out for in the ACC this season. Then we had Notre Dame versus Texas A&M. This was a big-time matchup. We had the comedian Shane Gillis in College Station for this one. We had the whole ESPN College Game Day crew out there in Texas at Texas A&M for this game. The Fighting Irish got a very impressive road victory over Texas A&M on Saturday night. These two teams played in front of a crowd of 107,315 in Aggies head coach Mike Elko's debut. The game was tied 6-6 at halftime before Notre Dame broke away in the second half, outscoring A&M 17-7. Former Duke transfer quarterback Riley Leonard did what he had to do in order to help the Irish get the victory, including throwing for 158 yards and adding another 63 yards on the ground. Notre Dame head coach Marcus Freeman said after this game that, and I quote, "It wasn't pretty," Freeman said. "The defense played lights out, forced turnovers, and our offense didn't turn the ball over. Yes, there's a lot of things we need to work on, but man, they did a great job at least trying to move the chains, and they didn't make a detrimental mistake." End quote. The highlight of the game has to be the Notre Dame rushing attack. The Irish posted 198 yards rushing, with running back Jeremiah Love leading the team with 14 attempts for 91 yards and 1 touchdown. On defense, lineman Howard Cross III led both teams with 1 sack. Notre Dame won't let off the gas, but their next 3 matchups against teams like Northern Illinois, Purdue, and Miami of Ohio should allow quarterback Riley Leonard time to settle into the new role with his new team. So I think Notre Dame's stock is on the rise. This was a statement-setting game, statement-setting victory against Texas A&M. You can argue because it's a new head coach and it's Texas A&M that maybe the stakes weren't as high, but I would really argue that because Texas A&M, it's such a crazy environment at College Station. That's a rabid fan base, and Texas A&M had a lot of returning talent. So I really thought this game would be close. I thought Texas A&M had a legit shot to pull the upset, but Notre Dame did what it had to do and got a solid victory for Marcus Freeman and that team, and I think Notre Dame stock is definitely on the rise. They've got a few weeks where they can kind of let off the gas, so to speak, before things kind of ramp up, but great victory for Notre Dame. Then we had Colorado versus North Dakota State. This was a game on last Thursday night. Colorado survives the 31-26 scare against North Dakota State to remain unbeaten in Week 1 action. The Buffaloes returned back to the Big 12 in their debut matchup last Thursday night. Everyone was glued to the television screens for this one. It was one of the more compelling games on Thursday night, and it was a later game for that matter, being played in Colorado. So everyone got a chance to watch this team in primetime action. Quarterback Shedeur Sanders and dual threat athlete Travis Hunter impressed big time during this contest against a Bison team that always causes trouble for teams. If I were an FBS team, if I was the AD for an FBS team, I would be very reluctant to schedule North Dakota State on my roster during the first couple of weeks of the season. Those Bison kids don't have anything else to do but focus on football. That's their life. That's their blood. That's what they dedicate their sweat to. Football. 365 days out of the year. They're always a tough matchup, even on the FCS level. They're very competitive, very, very good squad, very well coached. At times during this matchup, the Bison appeared to outmatch the highly talented Colorado squad, if I'm being real. I mentioned him earlier, but Buffs quarterback Shedeur Sanders had video game stats in this matchup. Deion's son completed 26 of 34 passes for 445 yards, 4 touchdowns to only 1 interception. Jimmy Horn Jr. and Travis Hunter each hauled in 7 passes. Horn Jr. had 198 yards for 1 touchdown, while Travis Hunter had 132 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns. Hunter had an impressive catch around a defender in the end zone late in the game. It had social media going nuts. Hunter, I don't think he came out of the game much because he's that much of an impact player, and the fact that his cardio and conditioning is that high level, especially in Colorado, like in that altitude, to be able to play both ways, not take any breaks, like that guy has to be a super elite athlete. And he had crazy catches. I saw LeBron James tweeting him out saying this kid's nuts, like this kid's crazy. It's just like both of those guys are video game players in real life. And I think they are going to be a dark horse for the Heisman. The only issue is that they've got to win games in order to be kind of considered for the Heisman. At least that's how we do it here lately. You know, you really are, it's the best player on like the best team. But if we're being real, these guys could be Heisman players because they do affect the game. They affect change in the game. Even though Colorado won't probably be that good this season, these guys show me week in and week out that they are the best players on the field, and they may be some of the best players in college football, regardless of how good that team is. Those guys are phenomenal athletes, and I can't stop talking about them. I just wish Colorado would be better. And you could tell me, Andre, they're 1-0. Like, what more do you want at this point? But I'm concerned that the fact that they barely hung on against an FCS team, and I don't want to take anything away from North Dakota State. They're a very lovely team. They're very competitive. But come on now. This is FBS football. Colorado's got a lot of hype, a lot of money into that program right now. Like, they shouldn't be barely winning against an FCS team. I don't care who they are, who the FCS team is. I'm just concerned for the rest of the way for Colorado. And the thing with Shedeur Sanders that I want to get back to is that he showed incredible toughness in this game. He took big hits, but he kept getting up and he helped his team win this game. There's no question that Coach Prime has some superstars on this team, but will they be able to win? That will remain to be seen, and I realize that North Dakota State is better than most FCS teams. So, I don't want to take anything away from that, but Colorado shouldn't be struggling to overtake the Bisons. It does have me concerned. We'll wait to see what happens week to week. But I am concerned. They're playing Nebraska this upcoming weekend. I'm concerned about Colorado's chances in that game because despite the playmakers on the team and how fun they are and how fun they make it at times, I think it will be a long season for Colorado and they are going to struggle in Big 12 play. There, I said it. Then the last game we'll talk about here for week 1 action, we had Vanderbilt versus Virginia Tech. Two teams with V names, Vanderbilt and Virginia Tech. I wonder how and why they scheduled that one years ago. But Vandy did the unthinkable against Virginia Tech on Saturday afternoon and beat the Hokies 34-27 in front of their hometown crowd. Even though the Hokies were unranked in the matchup, many folks close to the game believe that Virginia Tech is a team that could be pushing for an ACC crown this season. However, with this brutal loss to the Commodores, I think that could be in serious doubt now. The reason why I mentioned that VT was unranked was only to call out the fact that I believe I saw fans rushing the field after this game. And I find that funny because usually you see that happen when an unranked team beats a ranked team, but the bar for Vandy is so low, it's so incredibly low, that fans will take any big win they can get, regardless if the team is ranked or not. And so they rush the field after the game, and I'm not saying they shouldn't do that. I mean, that's hats off. That's cool to see a victory like that at home. Virginia Tech is a team that many people think will be good this season in the ACC. So that's a huge upset win for Vandy. So you gotta shout that out. That's cool. Virginia Tech may have had more yards in this game, but Vandy controlled time of possession. Vanderbilt had the ball nearly 35 minutes compared to Va Tech's 25 minutes. That's pretty big. Vanderbilt also ran the ball extremely well against the Hokies defense, racking up a total of 181 yards compared to Virginia Tech's 75 yards. So by controlling the clock and by controlling the fact that they could run the ball well and dominate that defense for Virginia Tech, they were extending drives, keeping drives alive, running up the clock. I mean, that's great coaching. That's great, a great skill set by that running back group of Vanderbilt and the quarterback to be able to extend plays and to keep the defense for Virginia Tech on the field to gas them out. I mean, hats off for that effort. That's fantastic. Graduate transfer quarterback Diego Pavia gave this team an immediate boost and dazzled in his first game with the Commodores. Pavia threw for 190 yards and rushed for $104 with 3 total touchdowns. He kept the Virginia Tech defense on its heels all game long. This game wound up going to overtime with Vandy making a crucial stop in order to seal the victory. This wound up being Vanderbilt's first win in nearly a year. The Commodores' last victory came on September 2nd, 2023 against Alabama A&M. So great win for Vandy. That's outstanding. Hats off. Well, those were some of the week 1 games that really had my attention this past weekend. But before we go, I want to take a quick break, a short time out. On the other side of the break, I'll give you my top 5 locks for week 2 action. So don't go anywhere. The Cherry Pickin' Podcast will be right back.
Want to know what life is really like after the game is all over? Real athletes are here to share their true stories of adversity and triumph every week on After Orange Slices. Even if you don't like sports, pro athletes, former college stars, celebrities, coaches, public speakers, doctors, and all kinds of experts join the show, and there's a little bit of something for everybody. Join me, Bridget, for a slice of inspiration, plus your everyday sports news sprinkled in. New episodes every Friday at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, available anywhere you get your podcasts.
Basketball is back. And with that comes joy, tension, heartbreak, buzzer beaters, and elation. It's time to be courtside for every one of those moments, no matter where your team is playing. Short Court specializes in making replica and custom basketball courts for your home, office, sports cave to decorate your walls with all those memories. If you have a picture, we can recreate it. Featured in the 2021 UniWatch Holiday Gift Guide, short courts are made using real wood. We frame and give them an epoxy finish to protect the new centerpiece of your memorabilia collection. With previous customers including Northern Kentucky University, Southern Utah University, 199 Apparel, The Perimeter Podcast with Adam Morrison, and many more celebrating the careers and retirements of their coaches, it's time you visit shortcourts.com for more info and a gallery of our work, or you can send us an email, info@shortcourts.com. Be sure to find us on social media, just search for Short Courts. It's time to bring the home court home.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Now I want to give you my top 5 locks for week 2 action, and we'll start in the ACC. I'm taking NC State over Tennessee. Considering how the ACC fared in the first couple weeks of action, if you consider week 0 a full week, I would say NC State has a tremendous opportunity in front of them to try and make a name for themselves this season. The top dogs, Virginia Tech, Florida State, and Clemson, are all on the downswing right now. NC State didn't play great last week, but they are unbeaten, and they have a chance to really take a good jump this week with a victory over Tennessee. The Volunteers got a very nice victory over Chattanooga last weekend by a score of 69-3. State and Tennessee are set to meet in the Duke Mayo Classic in Charlotte. This game pits 2 ranked teams together in a matchup that is going to be played during the primetime slot on ABC on Saturday night. If NC State is going to win this game, transfer quarterback Grayson McCall really needs to settle in, and he needs to limit his mistakes. In his debut for the Wolfpack last week, he didn't necessarily have a good game. He wasn't terrible, but he was bailed out by running back Jordan Waters, who led the team with 123 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns, and wide receiver Kevin K.C. Concepcion had a monster performance with 9 catches for 121 yards and 3 touchdowns. I will lean towards NC State winning this game, but I think it will be a close one. So I'm taking the Wolfpack over the Volunteers in the ACC. In the Big 12, I'm taking Kansas over Illinois. Kansas comes to Champaign this weekend in a matchup that I honestly wish I was in attendance for, to be honest. I wish I was at that stadium to watch it. And I don't know if there's anyone who would have said that a few years ago. But Kansas is an entirely different team this year. It's an entirely different vibe. They are fun to watch because I feel as if they're building towards something really special. I don't know if the same can be said for Illinois. This seems like such a critical year for Illinois coach Brett Bielema, who is now in his 4th season in Champaign, which actually seems kind of crazy that he's already in year 4. He's exactly 19-19 for his tenure. Illinois fans have been patient through all of the coaching changes in the recent history, but they are ready for Illinois to break through. They've got fantastic facilities and a great AD, but I think it's time for sustained 6+ wins seasons year over year. I think Illinois fans really want that, to just be consistent at this point. They're not saying you got to win the Big Ten, but let's consistently go to a bowl game year after year. Illinois has only had 2 6+ win seasons in the previous 5 seasons. I think it's proving time for Brett this year. I know this is a dream job for him to be in Illinois, but he's got to really turn it around. But I think for this matchup against Kansas, I'm taking the Jayhawks over the Illini. I would watch out for Kansas quarterback Jalen Daniels and running back Devin Neal to have monster games against Illinois this weekend. So in the Big 12, I'm taking Kansas over Illinois. In the Big 10, I'm taking Nebraska over Colorado. I think Matt Rule and his Cornhuskers will upset Colorado this weekend. Colorado has the big name players, but I'm still skeptical on how good a team they really are. This weekend's matchup between these two teams puts 2 former Big 12 rivals back together. Last year, the Buffs got away with a victory against Nebraska, but I really believe Matt Rule will have this Cornhuskers team in a bowl this season. If they can get a nice victory over Colorado this weekend, I feel as if Rule stock will shoot through the roof out in Lincoln. So in the Big Ten, I'm taking Nebraska over Colorado. In the Pac-12, I'm taking Washington State over Texas Tech. I'm taking Washington State over Texas Tech in a close one. Texas Tech went down to the wire in a matchup against FCS team Abilene Christian in overtime. The Red Raiders survived by a score of 52-51. And I'm not saying Washington State is a bunch of world beaters, but I think they will beat a Texas Tech team that is still likely recovering mentally and physically from an exhausting Week 1 game over an FCS team in which they almost lost. And it went to overtime. That's crazy. In the SEC, I'm taking Auburn over California. I think Auburn wins big over California in Week 2. Naperville's finest and former Michigan State transfer quarterback Peyton Thorne, and former Naperville Central Red Hawk, by the way, he is now starting for Auburn, and I think he'll have a monster game against California to keep Auburn undefeated. In Week 1, Thorne led the Tigers to the 73-3 victory over Alabama A&M. Thorne threw for 322 yards on 13 of 21 passing with 4 touchdowns. He also had 49 yards rushing with 1 touchdown on the ground. So in the SEC, I'm taking the Tigers over Golden Bears. So let me run that back for you one more time. In the ACC, NC State over Tennessee. In the Big 12, KU over Illinois. In the Big 10, Nebraska over Colorado. In the Pac-12, Washington over Texas Tech. And in the SEC, Auburn over California. Well, there we have it, my friends. That's my Week 1, Week 2 podcast. Hopefully you learned something from the Week 1 matchups earlier this week. And then hopefully you're getting primed and ready for the Week 2 action games that will be going down here this week. I appreciate you downloading this episode. Thank you for the support. Thank you for the follow. Thank you for being a friend, honestly. Thank you very much. Thank you for being you. But with that, I'm going to wrap this podcast up. Thank you for listening. Hope you guys have a great week. And here's to Week 2 college football this weekend. Take care, everybody. Have a good one. Peace. Thank you for being a friend, honestly. Thank you very much. Thank you for being you. Thank you again for tuning into my Cherry Pickin' podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to subscribe to my show and drop me a rating on Apple Podcasts. All of my digital content can be found at the website CherryPickinSports.com. And if you are looking to interact with me via social media, my Twitter handle is @Cherry_Pickin. That's PICKIN. On my Twitter, you'll also find a link to my blog where I post my weekly college football predictions and analysis. I can also be reached via email at cherrypickinsports@gmail.com. Please feel free to reach out to me regarding what you like about this podcast or about what content you'd like to hear more of on future episodes. I sincerely thank you for your support, and I can't wait to talk to you again soon. Take care.